Hello folks and welcome back to our Shadowlands Alpha coverage here on Warcraft Radio. My name is Kexman and we are taking our first look at Revendreth. So we've recently been able to get into Revendreth in the latest Alpha build and we've learnt a fair bit about the Venthyr. In this quest, we are essentially doing a task for Sire Denathrius and one of his underlings, Lord Chamberlain. We are attempting to take over someone called the Accused and helping remove them from the Halls of Atonement. They have, however, shielded themselves using two lieutenants, as I suppose you could call them. They're calling them Inquisitors. They're essentially lieutenants. And part of this is through using their Sin Stones. Now, Sin Stones in Revendreth are what the Venthyr kind of use as their pieces of power. This is where a lot of their sins from the past, what they are ashamed of mostly, tends to be found on. And they are supposed to hide these away so no one else can use them against them. However, that's exactly what we're going to do against the two Inquisitors. First up, we have Inquisitor Stellia, and we've managed to gain her Sin Stone and used it to name her Zilki the World Reaper, who seems to have used toxins and poisons to wipe out entire species. Because of this, we've been able to weaken her so we can take her on. Now, these Sin Stones generally tend to look almost like our versions of tombstones, which kind of explains why the data mined model of Kael'thas that was first found at the start of Shadowlands Alpha has a tombstone strapped to his back. It gives a little bit of gives us an idea of exactly what we can expect. We then move on to Inquisitor Wilhelm, who, using his Sin Stone, we name him Moongo the Sun King, who seems to have used his position of power for his own personal greed. Seems as though he kind of has used it to take advantage of people below him, and that was his sin that eventually ended up in Revendreth with him, and using it again, we're able to weaken him and kill him. Even though he does put up a bit of a fight, as you can see here, some of these mobs in the Shadowlands Alpha at this point in time are either slightly overtuned or they're not quite finished, so sometimes you'll come across one that will all of a sudden be doing a lot more damage than it would normally do. Once we've been able to clear out the Inquisitors, we are then free to take out the Accused herself. We don't know anything about the Accused at this point. It is a literal case of Sire Denathrius turning around and saying, you need to go and take her out. She seems to be up to something. And we're able to acquire her Sin Stone. And when we head up to the top here at the Halls of Atonement, she is actually in battle with Lord Chamberlain. And we now have her Sin Stone. Her lieutenants are dead. We can now get down to the real nitty-gritty, which of course is going to be the battle against the Accused herself. Lord Chamberlain has a plan to use her Sin Stone against her, and that is exactly what he does. The battle lines are drawn, and it's time for us to find out exactly what she is accused of. And it's a very, very similar process to what we see with the Inquisitors. So, as we see here, Harriet the Crimson Shade is the accused true name. She orchestrated the assassination of countless innocents, whose every profit came from murder, who killed her own, and now it seems as though it's not quite that easy. You see, it seems as though people have to actually be upset by the sins. It seems they have to be ashamed of what they've done, whereas the accused here states that she's proud of the sins that she's overcome to come to Revendreth, and because of that, it's not going to affect her quite as easily as the lieutenants did. What you have to do is you engage with the accuser, and it seems to be just a quick fight that sort of predates what's coming next. There's no real way for you to kill the accuser. There's no real way for you to die realistically unless you completely ignore everything, don't use any abilities. However, after a couple of seconds, it seems to be about 30 seconds, Lord Chamberlain manages to find something interesting, and the accuser manages to find one of her own sins. seems to be in the shape of a little girl, and as Lord Chamberlain mentions, it's the daughter she murdered in the dark of night. Now, there are a couple of people that are saying that this seems to be slightly too dark for Warcraft. It seems to be a little bit too on the edge, and I would question that simply because we are playing a game that has Arthas, Deathwing, Garrosh, some of the stuff that Sylvanas has done. It's not exactly been the kindest of worlds. So something like this, whilst it is particularly dark, it is definitely not out of place here in the World of Warcraft. Once this is done, the Accuser then ends up with a debuff that basically means she takes 2000% more damage, which means you can go absolutely ham on her, which will mean you are able to actually defeat her. And once you do, Lord Chamberlain reigns supreme over the Accuser and has her in chains, leading her off to the side where he locks her inside a cage to be taken off to Sire Denathrius. This is certainly an interesting look into Revendreth and the Venthyr as a whole, with their sin stones and the fact that they seem to have a manifestation of their sins that needs to be hidden away so nobody can take advantage of them. The fact that Kael'thas himself has been data mined with a tombstone on his back, leading credence to it being his sin stone, it's certainly going to be interesting to see what the future holds. My name has been Kexman. Make sure you subscribe for more content coming to the Warcraft Radio channel here on the Shadowlands Alpha.